This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so as I already said, today I'll be talking mostly about the logistic regression. So this is the agenda. I'll be talking about what are the different application of logistic regression, and why we cannot use linear regression directly for classification problem, because logistic is used mainly for binary classification. Okay, and then we'll be seeing how can we transform linear to logistic, and what is all math behind the logistic regression. So this we'll understand, and then we'll also focus on what are the cost function used in logistic regression, because it's slightly different from what is used in linear regression. And then we'll understand what is confusion matrix and the very important concept like ROC AUC curve explanation. Okay, and then we'll go through the one exercise. We'll see one project building in Python. Okay, so this all we'll see, and if time permit, then we'll also see the deployment using Flask, which we have already seen yesterday. Okay, so it depends on the time, how much time we are left with that one, because I don't want to hurry on these concept building. Okay, so let's see how it goes. So with that, let me start. So, as yesterday, I have given some introduction on types of problem we have in machine learning. So, machine learning problem can be divided in supervised versus unsupervised categories, right? So, in supervised, we have seen there are two types of problem. One is regression and one is classification. So, for regression, mainly we use linear regression, multiple linear regression, and other machine learning algorithm also can be utilized, like decision tree, random forest. Also, we can use. Okay, and then second is a classification problem, so where we classify the objects into certain categories. Okay, so we'll see those examples today. So under classification, so today itself, like today also, the logistic regression is the most powerful algorithm and most widely used. Okay, even in 70% of the use cases you see, okay, logistic regression, though it is a basic algorithm, but it's still that much powerful that it's give you better result. Okay, so so that's what we'll be discussing about. So let's discuss what are the use cases basically. So like you see, one of the use cases is fraud detection. So detection of credit card frauds or banking fraud is the objective of this use case. Okay, so in banks, so when bank issues the credit cards to their customers, right, or any other loan or anything, right? So they want to know, okay, for example, so credit card related fraud someone is doing, okay, what are the potential, okay, he'll be he'll be that customer can be categorized under the fraud category. Okay, all those things. Another use case could be like email spam or non-spam. So here, like if an email is coming to your mailbox, okay, so like you might have observed in your Gmail also, right? So Google automatically filtered certain mails as a spam category and certain non-spam category, right? So that's where like your inbox should not be filled with all spam mails. So that's where this categorization is very important. So even in certain offices, like they don't use Gmail, they use Outlook, right? Even they have their customized email box. So there they want to apply this kind of filtering. So that's where also we can use a logistic regression. Another example could be sentiment analysis, right? So when we buy any product or we write any tweet, right? So a tweet is nothing but some group of sentences, right? Or even when we buy some product, then we write certain reviews for that review for that product, right? And we give some ratings. So based on that, we want to identify whether whatever we have written, whatever we have tweeted, right, this is a positive sentiment or negative sentiment. It has involved a little bit of anger, or what kind of emotions are there, right? So those sentiments we can classify based on the given sentences. Then we can also categorize the images basically. So what kind of image it is, like whether it belongs to, it is a mobile image, it is a camera, it is a laptop, it is a pen, or what kind of image it is, right? So those kind of classification we can do. And then of course we can do the handwriting recognition also. Like, so we write different letters, right? So whether it is a, what kind of letter it is, like it belongs to 4, 5, 6, what it is, right? So those categorization also we can do in classification problems basically. Okay. And then of course we can do the disease prediction, like if a person shows all the medical history, okay, he input all the medical related data to the model, okay, so our model will learn those historical data, and based on that it will classify, okay, whether the person has a disease related to diabetes or not, okay, if we are interested to identify the diabetic patient, okay, so that also we can use. So basically, these are the classification problem. But to keep in mind, our logistic regression is used mainly for binary classification problem, where we have two classes. Okay, so we can name it class 1 and class 2. And using logistic regression, we want to identify whether an object belongs to class 1 or class 2. Okay. Of course, this, I mean, with little modification, we can use logistic for multi-class classification also, but mainly it is used for binary classification. Okay. Some other use cases of multi-class classification, you can see, like we have a newspaper, right? So different sections are there in newspaper. So whether a particular section belongs to sport category, health category, or like different maybe belonging to Bollywood section. Okay, so different sections are there in newspaper, right? So we need to classify, okay, a particular section belongs to which category. Okay, because these use cases, see, like when election happens or different campaigns going on, right, so they do and they perform analysis on newspaper, right, to identify, okay, where the sentiment of people are lying. Okay, so they might be interested to identify, classify the political related section in the in the newspaper, right, or in the general public related, not like sports or Bollywood or those kind of sections, right? So it depends on the what is your need, what is your target, what you want to achieve. Okay, based on that you will define your problem and then you will categorize them. So that's where we can apply. Another, like if we have a vehicle number, right, then we want to categorize like which state this vehicle belongs. It belongs to Karnataka, it belongs to another state, UP, MP, any other state, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, right, Kerala, any other state. So based on the number, we want to identify it. Okay, and then another example could be based on the audio clip. We want to identify which which generation this audio clip belongs to, right? It is from 90s or 20s, or which generation, right? Oldies, young, I mean whatever generation, right? So different generation also we can identify based on the audio clip. So these are the typical use cases of multi-class classification. Okay, so ultimately they are the problems based on the classification. Okay, so different classification algorithm we perform in these kinds of use cases. Okay, but today we will limit our discussion based on logistic regression only. Okay, so let's understand what is logistic regression. And because we have discussed the linear part, so I mean, that's how we have to start. Okay, from linear, then logistic. So what were the limitations of linear, and then why we went to logistic part? Okay, so let's first understand why we cannot use linear regression for the classification problem. Okay, then we'll see, okay, what are the some advancement happens on linear regression, what transformation we did on linear regression, so that we can use that for logistic regression. Okay, so let's understand this part. See, so suppose we have a data of different income level. Okay, different people are having different income level. Okay, and we plotted that data. So in x-axis, okay, just a minute. Yeah, in x-axis we have income level. Okay, and in y-axis we have purchase behavior. Okay, so based on the income level, so people will buy certain items. Correct. So whether he buys the costlier item or not, cheaper item, whatever, right? So this all depends on the income level. Okay, then it comes to like if you want to based on the income level, if you want to say, okay, whether a person will buy certain product or not, right? So for that, what we need to do, we need to classify that income to certain bucket. Okay, maybe a person with more than 50K monthly income, he will buy that item. Okay, and a person with less than 50K income level will not buy that item. Just hypothetically, I'm assuming. Okay, so based on that 50K, we can classify, okay, this belongs to class 0, and based on that, this belongs to class 1. Okay, but so this is now we can classify. But what we do in linear regression? In linear regression, instead of classifying something, we predict one number. Okay, so like continuous number, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Like yesterday we seen, okay, house price prediction. So we predicted the price of the house in thousands, right? Based on certain properties, the price of particular house will be this much, right? That's what a linear regression do. So ultimately linear regression will give you one number, right? So suppose here we want to for time being just to forget about the purchase level. Okay, we have a certain income category people. Okay, and then suppose a new person comes, so based on certain property we will define, okay, which income category it belongs. Okay, so suppose there is a higher income level and there is a lower income level. So let me just explain you, just a minute. Okay, so there could be a higher income level. Okay, a higher income bracket people, and there could be lower income bracket people. Correct, right? And how you will identify them? You have only their income like 50K, 40K, 30K, 20K, like that. Correct. And if you give some input to your linear regression, it will predict like this. Okay. Okay. So for example, if I tell, okay, a person is working in IT sector. So this is one property. Person is living in this, like in a metro city, maybe Bangalore. Okay. So that metro city, that is another property. Like yesterday we talked about predictors. Okay, so these are the predictors. Okay, so like he's working in IT sector, he's staying in a metro city. Okay, and what is his expenditures, monthly expenditures, right? So expenditure is also given to us, right? So let's assume we have three variables with us. Okay, and based on that, if you apply linear regression, okay, so it will tell you, okay, what could be his salary, right? So it will tell you, okay, his salary is maybe 20K, correct? Or it can predict, okay, its salary is 30K. That's what linear do, right? Linear regression give you one number like 10K, 20K, 30K, right? So linear regression has given you 20K, 30K, 40K. Okay, and now suppose you have decided that there is a threshold of 50K, correct? You decided this threshold. Okay, so now based on this threshold, you can say, okay, if linear regression is predicting income less than 50K, then you will tell, okay, that person belongs to class 0. Okay, some class 0, like lower income bracket. Okay, lower income, correct? And if in predicted income is greater than 50, so he belongs to higher income bracket. Okay, so based on that, his purchase behavior will be high. Fine. Okay, so this is the basic this is how like we can use linear regression for classification. Up to this you might be thinking, okay, we can use linear regression for classification, right? Because we got the threshold. If it is predicting less than 50K, we can say, okay, it belongs to class 0, and if predicting more than 50K, it belongs to class 1, right? Means higher income level. Now what happens, suppose very very higher income person joins, like if you're talking about any company, so okay, maybe company CEO or chairman joins, okay, right, joins your group, so their income will be very high, correct? So like this one, okay, this one belong, maybe this is some CEO of a company, okay, and he joins your data set, right? So now what will happen, your threshold will change, right? Because what linear regression do, it will generate a best fit line. That's how you predict, right? But based on this, because this is the outlier, because we discussed yesterday, right? This is the outlier, right? So based on that, this linear regression line will be shifted towards right, towards this outlier. And now the moment this linear regression line shifted, this threshold will also get changed, right? This will automatically get changed. And the moment this threshold changes, so what will happen? You just project like this, correct? So these persons which were before here identified as class 1 means higher income level. But because he joins, CEO joins, based on that, our linear regression line shifted, and that's where now it will tell, okay, this person now belongs to lower income level. But that is not the case, right? This is wrong, right? They will still belongs to upper income level, because this is just a outlier. This is not representing your population. If I ask you, okay, on an average, what is the salary of India population, right? It's not like you will include, you will tell only CEO salary. This is not the case, right? You will take average, and for taking the average, you will remove the outlier, right? Outliers are not the correct representation, right? Or you will consider the median. That's where we talk about whether to use mean or median, right? You can refer yesterday's lecture. Okay, so that's where the bottom line here is like it linear regression will start misclassifying these point, which it st- told you before, like lower higher income, and now it will tell you these belongs to lower income. Okay, so these are the limitation basically. If threshold changes because of the outlier, it will start misclassifying which it has classified in certain category in previous iteration. Okay, so those are the limitations of linear regression, right? Because it is not able to fix any threshold, right? So now the problem reduced to if somehow we can fix this threshold, right? Like 50K, 60K or anything. Okay, if somehow we fix this threshold, then at least we can classify, okay, above this threshold they belongs to one category, and below this threshold they belongs to another category, right? So one problem we identify, somehow like fixing the threshold. Correct? If we can fix the threshold. Second thing, one more thing we can do, like linear regression will tell you like numbers in 10K, 20K, 30K, right? It will predict like this. Okay, so now if you can transform these numbers somehow in probability value, and your probability value will always lie in between 0 to 1, correct? If somehow you can transform those numbers in between 0 to 1 probability value, and then you can easily set a threshold of 0.5, right? And you can say, okay, the probability value less than 0.5, they belongs to class 0, and probability value greater than 0.5, they belongs to class 1. It will be very easy, right? If your model, your algorithm is telling, okay, there are 70% chances this person belongs to higher income level, so 70% chance, right? And 30% chance this belongs to lower income group. So what you will conclude, because 70% chances, there is a 70% probability involved, right? So higher probability, there are high chances it will belongs to higher income level. So finally you will categorize that person to the higher income level, right? So these two things. So now converting them to probability score. Okay, so if we can somehow find these two things, then we can easily do the classification, and it will overcome the problem with linear regression in classification problem. Okay, so now let's understand like how we can overcome these limitations in linear regression. Okay, so that's where we'll start linear to logistic transformation. Okay, let's understand. So I will share this PPT. You can refer this whatever is inside linear, this yellow box. Okay, I have talked about those things. So now, yeah. So two things we discussed. We need to identify fixing threshold and getting the probability, right? So now we'll focus, our whole discussion will be focused on finding the probability value and fixing the threshold. Okay. So let's discuss what other function we will be using to achieve this goal. Okay, so that's where we have something called sigmoid function in statistics. Okay, so sigmoid function has range between 0 to 1. Okay, you give any value. So in x, so see, this is your x-axis, you can assume, right? In x-axis you give any value, 2, 4, 6, any value. Okay, or in negative direction, -2, -4, -6. Okay, anything you give, but its output, it will range in between 0 to 1. Okay, so that's the property of sigmoid function. It is a S-shaped curve, and it will give you output in the range of 0 to 1. So ultimately, it returns you the probability value. Okay, and this is we are going to use to transform the linear regression so that it start giving you the probability value. Okay, instead of giving you some continuous number like 10k, 20k, 30k, right? Instead of this, it will just transform them in between 0 to 1. Okay, and then it will be much easier for us to classify them, right? Because we can get a threshold, for example 0.5, and we can easily say above 0.5 it belongs to class 1, below 0.5 it belongs to class 0, right or wrong, right? So we'll use this sigmoid function. One more thing, okay, so how to use this sigmoid function to transform linear to logistic, let's understand. Okay, so in yesterday's session you must have seen, okay, this is the multiple linear regression equation. So like we have predictor x1, x2, x3 till xk. Okay, and these are the coefficient beta naught, beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, and beta naught is the y-intercept. Okay, and that's how we get the linear regression equation. Okay, so for any predictor, suppose you want to predict the house price, you put, okay, those x1, x2, those different features of the house, okay, here, and you'll get the house price value. It's as simple, right? Now, how can we use this for the classification? Let's understand. As I already said, we need to transform this. So how we can transform? Let's see. Okay, so we talked about sigmoid function. It is nothing but 1 upon 1 plus e to the power minus z, and z will put this linear regression value. Okay, whatever linear regression will predict. Okay, so that will put here. Okay, and the moment we put z value here, it will become like this. Okay, so this is simple mathematics. You need to solve it. Okay, then it will become e to the power this z, and then e to the power z plus 1. Correct? But don't you think this is a very difficult to solve equation? This looks like very bulky equation, right? It's very complex kind of thing. Okay, so let's simplify it further. Okay, so this is a probability value, and if we express probability in terms of odd ratio, okay, so what is odd ratio? Odd ratio is nothing but the probability of success divided by probability of failure, right? So whenever like football matches or any sports is going on, okay, so like in like who are like very enthusiastic people towards the sport, okay, they start talking about, okay, what are the odds of a particular team winning. Okay, what are the odds like India will win the match, what are the odds Germany will win the football World Cup, right? So in terms of what is odd, basically odd is nothing but the probability of success divided by probability of failure, right? So if probability of success is more, if this is more, right, so odd ratio will be more, it means winning chances are more. So that's where they talk about odd ratio, right? So let's use this odd ratio to transform this, to simplify this equation further. Okay, so let's put p value here. Okay, if you will put the p value here and solve it with this equation by taking the LCM, it will become this. Very simple. Okay, s is equal to e to the power, and this is nothing but z, right? This exponential power, this is z, right? Our z, this one, correct? So now it becomes s, right? And s is odd ratio. Now to simplify it further, take log both side. Okay, if you take log both side with respect to the base e, log base e, that becomes ln. Okay, so ln s will become this, correct? So how log works, basically, if you have log of base e into s, okay, is equal to something e to the power some z, right? So what it will become, sorry, it will become log s, this is s, right? And this is like this, right? I'm just writing this equation, correct? So how it will be solved, basically, here also you need to apply log, because we need to take log both sides, correct? And it will become log of s base to the power e is equal to z log of e base to the power e, correct? And this is nothing but 1, right? If we have base and this value same, then it will become 1, right? And it becomes z. So log of s base to the power e, correct? And this log base e you also write as ln s is equal to z, right? And this is what happens here. Okay, so little bit mathematics is involved here. Okay, so just for your understanding, I explained this thing. So now lns becomes beta naught plus beta 1 x1 plus this. Okay, now you see, come here. Okay, you compare these things with this, correct? So we have lns is equal to beta naught plus beta 1 x1. So this right side, this is nothing but the linear regression output, right? So any binary classification problem, if you solve it with respect to linear regression, then you will get this output, right side you will get with the help of linear regression, which we have already seen, correct? And now if you get some value like some 20, 30, whatever you get, okay, so it will become lns is equal to 30, and now from here you start reversing it. Okay, lns is equal to 30, so s is equal to e to the power 30, and then e to the power 30 you can calculate using calculator, that is your s, and put s value here, s is equal to p upon 1 minus p, and you will get the probability value. It's very simple, right? So that's what I have written here. Okay, so the just a minute, let me remove this so that it will be visible to you. Okay, so now you read it here. The log of odds is called logit, and transformed model is linear in beta, as you have seen. Okay, so this is the transformed equation, and this is called log of odd, LHS, and this is linear equation in betas. Okay, betas are nothing the coefficient of predictor variable. So solving the logistic regression problem essentially reduces to finding the betas that minimizes the error. Right, so this we have seen yesterday, how we get betas by minimizing the error, right? So that's how we get beta 1 beta 2 coefficient value, right? Now suppose with one predictor we got the linear regression equation like this. Okay, so here we have multiple predictor x1 x2 x3. So for like example purpose, let's take there is a one predictor, okay, x. Okay, and you got your linear regression math method has given you this equation, so like minus 20 plus 42 something minus 42 into x. Okay, now if you want to predict this value, this LHS value for x is equal to 50, so what you will do, you will simply put x is equal to 50 here, and it will return you some value, right? So lns will become this one, this plus this is equal to 0.89, and s will become e to the power 0.89, it will become 2.435, right? And then again you put, so basically from here we are reversing, right? So we are reversing, we are going in backward direction, right? So s is equal to e to the power this, it becomes this, and now you put s value here, p upon 1 minus p, then p will be 0.709, that is 70%. That you got ultimately the probability value, right or wrong? Your linear regression has given you 0.89 as number, so this is not the probability, this is number. This could be in 1000 also, right? It depends, so like how much value your coefficients are having, correct? So I just took a hypothetical example, hypothetical linear regression equation, right? So in actual, it could be different. Okay. So now you got the probability value 0.70. So now you can tell, okay, with 70% probability, this X, okay, this predictor belongs to class 1. And remaining 30% probability, it belongs to class 2nd, right? So wherever the higher probability involved, you will finally conclude, okay, this person belongs to class 1 because 70% probability. Okay. So this is whole thing, this is the whole math is involved behind the logistic regression. Okay, but in a moment I'm going to solve this with Python. Okay, then you will see, okay, we'll import the libraries, and in tuck 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 it will give you the output. Okay, and you will not be seeing what is happening behind the scene. Okay, so that's where when it comes to model tuning, fine tuning, improving the accuracy, then you will only be able to tune your model if you know the what happens behind the scene. Okay, so this understanding is very important. So I hope this is clear, right? If you have any doubt, then please ask. Let's move further then. So now, as I said, next topic is like discussing about cost function in logistic regression. Okay, so in linear regression we have seen we use this cost function yi minus yi hat. So yi is, so yi is nothing but the actual value. So So we are predicting something, right, in linear regression. So there will be some actual value while model training. So in model training, we have the value, whatever we are going to predict, right? So that is known as actual value. And for that, you will predict something. So that is denoted as y hat. Okay. And the difference. So this is the error basically. Okay. And to minimize it, we square and take derivative and equate it to 0. That's how we get beta naught and beta 1, those coefficients. Right. So this we have talked about yesterday. You can refer the recording. Okay, so now we will not, so this is known as cost function for linear regression, but we will not be using this cost function in logistic regression. The reason is, if you plot this cost function, it is a non-convex. It will look like something this. Okay, so what is non-convex? Which has multiple local minima. Okay, so this is a local minima. This is also local minima. This is also local minima, right? So there should be, so for classification problem, we cannot use this because there should be one global minima. Then only we can minimize the error and then we can classify in one category, right? So that's where we have some other cost function that is known as log likelihood. So this is the cost function. If you plot, it will look like this. Okay, it will have one global minima. Okay, so this is more related to math. You can go further on deep level. Okay, so that we can talk separately, but today we'll focus on this log likelihood. Okay, I just given you some intuition behind why we are changing the cost function. Okay, so now this is known as log likelihood. So this is the cost function will be used in logistic regression. Now the important thing here, okay, the important thing here, like in interview people ask what why we say maximize the log likelihood. What do you understand by maximizing the log likelihood? Okay, so here we'll understand what is the reason behind maximizing the log likelihood. Okay, so what this mean? So suppose you want to classify certain objects in two different categories. Okay, so one class is, so class or category both are same. Okay, one category is 1, another category is 0. Fine. Okay, so there is a class 1 and there is a class 0. Okay, so this is your actual yi, and now you want to predict. Okay, so if you want to predict, so what your expectations will be? Your expectations will be your prediction result will be as closer to actual result, right? So if in actual object belongs to class 1, then you will like, okay, your prediction should also belongs to 1. Correct, this is your expectation, right? Whether your model is giving you actual result or not, that's a different thing, but your expectations is this, right? And how you will achieve, how you will meet this expectation. Okay, so for that what you can do, so let's so this is yi, that is actual value, this is predicted value, this is again actual value, this is predicted value. Okay, and let's understand how this formula works. Okay, so let's talk about case 1. Okay, and case 2 will be similar. So case 1, when yi is equal to 1. Okay, so then your expectation will also be yi hat, that is the predicted value 1. So this is your expectation, right or wrong? Correct? TATION. Okay, expectation. So now let's put this yi, because this is known, actual value known to us. Let's see for this what will be the prediction. So let's put yi is equal to 1 here in this equation. Okay, so then this will become this function. Okay, this yi is equal to 1. So 1 into ln yi hat, right, plus 1 minus 1 into ln 1 minus yi hat. Correct, this is 1 minus 1 0, it will become 0. So only remaining is like 1 into ln yi hat, ln yi hat. Correct, and this is log likelihood. Correct. Now how, when this ln yi hat will be, sorry, when this yi hat will be 1, because ultimate goal is to get yi hat 1. Okay, so when this will be 1, so now you see, so ln 1 is 0. Correct, and ln anything less than 1 is less than 0. Correct, so because yi hat will take only value between 0 to 1, right? any value between 0 to 1. It cannot be greater than 1, it cannot be less than 1, right? Because this is a probability value. Now, ln1 is 0, ln less than 1 will be less than 0. So maximum value of ln is 0, right? And then maximum value of ln you will get only when you have yi hat is equal to 1. Correct? So that's where we say we want to maximize the log likelihood, because only maximizing the log likelihood we will get yi hat similar to yi. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Okay, I will share this whole explanation I have written here. So you can read it later, and if you have any doubt, of course you can ask. Okay, so let's move further. So confusion matrix, another important concept, because when it predicting to class 1, predicting to class 0, it makes some error, right? So sometimes what happens, in actual object belongs to class 0, but model is predicting to class 1. Okay, so that's where it is doing error. Or in other way, if actual value is 1 and model is predicting to class 0. Correct? Or in another terminology, I say there are two classes, positive and negative. Okay, any two classes you can assume: true, false, 0, 1, positive, negative. Okay, anything. Okay, positive and negative. So if your actual value is positive, but model is telling you negative, or if actual value is negative, your model is telling you positive. So then model is doing error. Correct? If it is positive, then model is also telling you positive, then it is correct, no error. Correct? So that's where there are some performance metrics, some performance score we need to understand. Okay, so that's where your confusion matrix helps you. Okay, so there are 4 terminology associated with this. Okay, those terminologies are true positive, false negative. I will explain. Okay, so wait a minute. False positive, true negative. So what is true positive? If your actual class is positive and model is also predicting it as positive, then it tells you true positive. Okay, actually it is positive and model has also predicted as positive. So this is fine, no error here. Correct? No error. But here you see false negative. What it means? Actually it is positive, but model has predicted as negative, means wrongly predicted as negative. Correct? Because this is actual and this is predicted. In actual it is positive, means yes, right? Yes means positive, right? Actual it is positive, but model is predicting as negative, means false negative, wrong prediction, wrongly predicted. Correct or wrong? Right? Wrongly predicted. Same here. So this block denotes the error. Correct? And then coming here, false positive. So false positive means actually it is negative, but model is predicting as positive. So wrongly predicted as positive. So wrong prediction. Right or wrong? So this is also known as error. Correct? And then this is true negative, means actually it is negative and model has also predicted as negative. So no error here. Okay? So these are true classes, this and this, and these are error. So that's where this is also known as type 1 error, and this is known as type 2 error. Okay. So more explanation can be given in hypothesis testing. Okay. But type 1 error is related with false positive and type 2 error is related with false negative. Okay. So now with this 4 terminology, there are some performance score associated with. Okay. So what are those performance scores? One is sensitivity or recall. Okay. So what is recall? Recall is nothing but the true positive rate. So that is true positive divided by true positive plus false negative, right? So what is this? So true positive. So that means actually predicted as positive, means uh, in actual it is positive and model has also predicted as positive. Okay, in bottom true positive plus false negative. So summation of this, like in actual, how in total how many are positive, right? Because fn model has predicted as negative, but in actual this is positive, right? So this is your total actual positive in denominator, right? And in numerator, this is model has predicted positive, right? Correctly. So this is known as recall and true positive, right? Okay. Now I will tell you in a moment like when to use recall. Okay. Let's first discuss what is precision. Okay. So precision is known as like true positive divided by true positive plus false positive. So true positive correctly identified as positive. Okay. And then true positive plus false positive. False positive is wrongly identified as positive. Okay. So it tells you out of, so see, TP plus FP, what it is in denominator, it is basically this quadrant and this quadrant, right? So this is like total predicted as positive. Doesn't matter in actual they are positive or not positive. So these two together denote total predicted as positive. Okay. Out of them, how many are actual positive, right? So how precise your result is, how accurate your result, whatever you predict, okay, out of those predicted positive, how many are actually positive, right? How accurate your result are. If you are claiming something, so how precisely you are claiming, okay, that is your precision. Okay. Now come to the specific problem, when to use recall and when to use precision. Okay. So suppose there is a medical related problem. Okay. So a person is having a very severe disease and he is going for a testing. Okay. And then your tests are telling, okay, he is negative. So a person will happily go home, right? But there is a a problem with him, right? He's having a disease, but your test is telling, okay, he's negative, he don't have any disease. Then in coming months, okay, it can be further severe, right? So it could be a death and life case, right? So that's where in medical related problem we want to maximize our recall. Okay, so that's where recall is more important when you deal with medical related problem. Okay, where your impact of true false negative is very high. Okay, so you should minimize the false negative. Getting the point? Coming to precision. Okay, so precision, you just think of spam filtering mail. Okay, if you have applied for any company and you got selected and you are getting a like a mail from the company. Okay, like you are hired. Okay, you got selected. Okay. Now, suppose your mailbox considered it as a spam mail and it send it to spam folder, and it is not delivered in your inbox folder, and you will not get to know, okay, if the company is not calling you personally, then you will not get to know, okay, whether you are selected or not selected, and that mail was very important, right or wrong? So that's where here false positive, like wrongly it tells you, okay, it is positive, means wrongly it told you it is a spam mail. Okay, though it was not a spam, right? So that's where in these kind of situation we minimize the false positive. Okay, so whenever we want to minimize the false positive, that's where we go for precision. Okay, we maximize the precision, okay, by minimizing the false positive. And whenever our false negative impact is very high, so we'll want to minimize the false negative and we'll maximize the recall. Okay, so these are the two specific problems where you want to use the recall and precision, and they will be related with class imbalance problem. Okay. Now next thing is specificity. So that is like true negative rate. So like true negative divided by true negative plus false positive. Okay. And then another one is like F1 measures. F1 measure is like where you want to have a balance between precision and recall. So like you want to have a balance. Okay. So that's where you can do like get the harmonic mean of precision and recall. Okay. That is known as F1 score. And then we have like accuracy. Okay. So where you have balanced class. Okay. So both classes are important. Okay. Negative is also important, positive is also important. Like in case of recall, like right, positive positive class have higher impact, right? So if you have if someone has serious disease, then your model should identify it, right? It should not tell it negative. Correct. So that's where like here like so see in medical related problem, suppose if you talk about cancer, right, with whole world population, there are very less cancer patient compared to the population, right? Though this disease is high severe, right? So those many numbers are also alarming, right? But compared to whole population, if you just talk about numbers, so those cancer patients are very less, right? So that's where it is an imbalance problem. One class will be very high and one class will be low in number. So similar will happen in precision also. Okay, in your inbox, if you see most mail delivered to your inbox, very less go to spam because very less are spam. Right? So it's a class imbalance problem. So where you have a balanced class, like both classes are important, then you go for accuracy. Okay, this is simply like true positive plus true negative divided by total. Okay, so this is about the confusion matrix. Now let's talk about another thing. Okay, so till now, so when I started with linear regression, okay, I told, okay, you need to transform linear to work like logistic, and I told, okay, there are two problems. Get the threshold, right? If somehow you can get the threshold and you convert those number, like whatever linear regression is predicting, to probability value, correct? Then you can think, okay, this can be used for logistic regression, right? For classification, basically, right? So we now we know, okay, using sigmoid function, we can convert those number to probability value, right? But we have still not discussed how to fix the threshold. We assumed, okay, if a probability is between 0 to 1, we can say, okay, in normal scenario, okay, 0.45, okay, less than 0.5, there is a class 0, greater than 0.5, there is a class 1, okay. But this cannot be always case, okay. There could be like you want to be more precise, right? Then you can say, okay, if it is 0.9, okay, so like in cancer kind of thing, okay, medical, your result should be 90 per at least 90% accurate, right? So that's where you will set the threshold 0.9. It like depends on the severity of the problem. If problem is very severe, right, then you set the, you increase the threshold. It's relatable, right? If you can, in cancer related problem, you cannot rely on 0.5 threshold, right? Your test results should be at least 90% accurate, right or wrong? So that's where you'll set the 9.9 as a threshold. But how your machine will recognize this threshold? As a human, we can identify, right? But how your machine will recognize this threshold? That's where AUC and ROC curve helps you. So AUC is like area under curve, this area, okay, this one. This area is known as area under curve, okay, this whole area, okay. And ROC is nothing but receiver operating characteristic. So this is this concept is taken from electronic signal processing, okay, but it's used in machine learning also, okay. So what it does, okay, don't go with the full form. I will explain you what it is, what is the conceptual understanding, okay. So AUC ROC curve is plotted with respect to false positive and true positive. Okay, in x-axis we have false positive, and in y-axis we have true positive. And I have already told you, okay, false positive is the error. This is error, right? And this is the correct value, right? True positive, correctly identified as a positive. In problem, we want to minimize the error, very normal, right? So when we want to minimize the error, and simultaneously we want to maximize the true positive. Now you just follow this curve. This is the origin, okay, and it is moving in upward direction. So here, increment in false positive is very less, but increment in true positive is very high. So this is the desired result, right? Your error should be less, your true positive rate should be high. So it's fine. It is going upward, 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 upward. But after here, okay, maybe here, right? It start increasing your false positive rate because it is going towards right? And from here, you see, from here, your increment in false positive is very high, but your true positive is almost constant, right? Your true positive is almost constant. So that's where you set your threshold somewhere here based on the severity of your problem. Okay. If your problem is less severe, okay, you can set threshold somewhere here, okay, 0.7, okay, because up to this only true positive was increasing and false positive are not increasing. But if you want to increase more true positive, you can set somewhere here, okay, 0.9, correct? So after that, true positive increment is very less. It's almost negligible, right? So that threshold setting, how to identify the threshold. So AUC, ROC tells you the threshold value. In interview, people ask, what is the significance of AUC, ROC? So the one important significance is like it tells you the threshold. What should be the right threshold value for classification problem? Okay. Another important is like AUC, area under curve. So this area under curve is the it tells you how good your model is, the goodness of your model. Okay. So this basically used in comparison, like if you have built two different models, okay, M1 and M2, then if I ask which model is performing good, how you will tell me, okay? Then you will compare their AUC score, okay, AUC1 and AUC2. So if model 2 has more AUC score, then model 2 will be good, okay, it is performing better, okay. In another word, this AUC, so suppose AUC value is 70, okay. So this telling, okay, 70% variance in the target variable, 70% variance in the target variable is explained by the model or predictors. Okay. Remaining 30% you cannot guarantee, but 70% variance. Okay. So see guys, when we explain these concepts, we use terminology like variance, standard deviation, and all those things. Okay, so these are coming from statistics. So that's where I suggest, okay, understanding of statistics is very important. You cannot directly jump to machine learning. Of course, you can jump and you can start building model, but your understanding will not be that high, right? So you should understand the terminology, and that understanding will come only from statistical. So invest some time. If you are starting your data science learning, invest some 15 to 20 days understanding your statistical concept. What is mean, median, mode? It looks very simple, what is mean, median, mode, but yesterday I talked about what are the specific cases when you select mean, when you select mode. It's not only knowing the definition, it's knowing the use case, when to apply which one. Okay, so that is important. So like Z-score, this percentage variance, when I say like, so how much variance in target variable is explained by the predictor variable. So that is known as goodness of fit. What is goodness of fit? What is variance? Okay, so these all comes from statistical terminology. But basic overview I can give. Okay, suppose this is a population. Okay, and from population you derive one sample, right? So this sample should have all the variance of this population. Then only it is known as like good sample, correct representative of this population. Correct. So this is population and this is sample. Because we perform all statistical measures on sample, because we cannot perform in population data, because right, it is very like huge data. So that's what. So sample should be the correct representation of population, then only your statistical result will be correct. So that's where it is telling 70% of the variance it is able to identify. Okay, so its accuracy is near to 70%. So that's what we do. Okay, so same thing I have explained here in the points. Okay, so you can read. I will share this PPT with you. Okay, now let's start with the model building. Okay, so I hope the conceptual understanding is fine. So if you have any question, then feel free to ask me. Otherwise, I will start the model building. Okay, because we are already 1 hour. Okay, we have half an hour left. So let's start with model building. Okay, so I have a banking data. So let me explain it first. Okay, what is the problem basically? So I have a banking data with me, so which has a column like let me open the bank data directly. Okay, so this is the bank data. Correct. So like we have age, job. So in this data, so the problem is, so if bank person, he's coming up with a new feature. Okay, he have new like loan. Okay, or term deposit facility or recurring deposit, fixed deposit, and he is coming up with new interest rate. Okay, so he bank think, okay, these are the low interest rates, so people might be interested to subscribe for the term deposit, or will be willing to take the loan in low interest rate. Okay, so that's where but banks should introduce that facility to the customer, right? How customer will get to know, okay, bank is coming with new services, right? New facility, lower interest rate or whatever. Okay, so what banks? So bank cannot call everybody in India, 138 crore population, right? They cannot call everybody. So they will filter certain data from population. Okay, whole big population. They will filter some people. Okay, who are the potential customer to subscribe for the that term deposit, right? And once they have identified, okay, this is the potential customer, then they will introduce that service to them. So now the problem is how to identify who is the potential customer, which one, which person will subscribe for the term deposit and which one will not subscribe for the term deposit. Okay, so this is the problem. For this, they will collect some data, right? They will collect some data like age of the person, job type, like which kind of job he is working on, okay, his marital status, right, his education type, okay, default, like in previous, like he is having any loan and whether he was a loan defaulter or not, okay, whether he is having a running housing loan or not, whether he is having a personal loan or not, okay, because these features tells the liabilities of the person, okay. If he is having a lot of liabilities, then he may not opt for any saving scheme, right or wrong? If a bank is coming with new saving scheme and a person has lot of liabilities, then it will be difficult to invest further, right? So that's where these features are important to identify the potential customer, and then what kind of contact he is having, okay. So now last month, in last campaign, if a person has been contacted, then in which month he was being contacted by the bank, okay. You get many call from the bank, right? They have all the record last time when they contacted you, which day they have contacted, when they have contacted, if you picked the call, then what was the duration of the call. If you simply cut the call, so duration will be zero, right? Then simply it means like last time you have not subscribed, right? So any interpretation you can draw, okay. The campaign number, how many campaign you have performed, okay, past days, previous, okay, outcome of the campaign, right? So all different features are there, okay. Employee variance rate, all employability rate basically, okay, price index, all different features are there, right, which governs the status of the like employee or person, right? And based on that, they will build a model, because nowadays bank people are hiring a lot of data scientists for this kind of job, okay. So same kind of data there also you will be having, only the difference, like you might have many more columns, okay, other features, and many more rows, okay. Or you might your task will also involve, okay, go to that database and collect the data, so a lot of time will be consumed in collecting the data also, okay. So once you have the data, then the problem will be straightforward like this. Okay. So now let's understand. Okay. So this is the data set, and we also explained the problem and how to build that model. Okay. So basically, in this model building, we'll be talking about the exploratory data analysis on banking data. We'll look the visualization part. We'll look into the data pre-processing, because we'll be having the categorical variable, and because there is a imbalance in the class, okay. So one class is having more data, another class is having low data, so we'll see how to handle the imbalance problem, okay. And then we'll see how to select the feature, so we'll use this technique. There are many more other techniques also, okay. So model building, okay, finally we'll build the model, okay, and then we'll understand the output, okay. So let's begin with. So I hope you are a bit familiar of these pandas, NumPy, okay, which are coming from Python, okay. So if so, you need to install these pandas before. So what you can simply do, you can do like pip install pandas, okay. It will install the pandas, and then pip install NumPy, okay. It will simply install it, okay. But I have installed, so I will not execute them. Fine. You need to import them. So import pandas as pd, numpy as np, okay. And we'll be using the matplotlib library for the plotting, okay, for visualization purpose. And then sklearn will be using for logistic regression, for model building, okay. And then for train test split, because we need to split the data set into train and test, okay. In training we'll train the model, and in testing we'll see how much accuracy we are getting, okay. So we'll import all these things, fine. And then we are setting like we will be using the Seaborn. This is another visualization library, okay. Some chart will be building using this, and some will be using this, okay. And this is just the background of the chart, okay. We are setting the area. So that's fine. Let's read the data. So like with pd.read underscore csv banking data. So here, if you are in the same path, then you can directly give the file name. Otherwise, you need to provide the complete path, and it will read the data for you, okay. Then data.head, what it will give. So data.head basically return you all the like basically first 5 rows of that data. So you see here. So now we are doing exploratory data analysis. What exploratory data analysis do basically? Exploratory data analysis helps you to understand about your data, Okay, so what kind of data you have, how many variables are there, like whether there are some categorical variable, numerical variable, all those things. Okay, and then you also understand like statistical measure, what is the mean value, what is the median value. Okay, what is the distribution of different variables, what is the distribution overall data. So all these things you do in exploratory data analysis. Okay, so we'll see few of the things. Okay, so data dot head, if you do, like, you will get first 5 rows. So we have these many columns, okay, like this. Okay, and yeah, and now you see one more important. So see, in exploratory data analysis, we look for the values also. Like you see here in education, we have basic dot 4y, high dot school, university dot degree. Okay, so and if I just run the tail, okay, so it will give you bottom of 5 rows. Okay, so like here also basic dot 4y. So I wanted to show you, okay, there is a basic dot 6y also. So what you can do, you can run so let me take it another variable, otherwise it will change the scope. So pd dot read underscore csv banking dot csv. Okay, and then data one dot head. So by default it will give first 5 rows. Okay, and but you can also pass the number, how many rows you want to see. Okay, so here this is what I wanted to show you. Like in this education column, it's not only basic dot 4y, we have basic dot 9y also, somewhere we have basic dot 6y also. Okay, so something you can get from here. Okay, this is the basic education. Okay, so why to keep have different categories, basic dot 4y, basic dot 9y, you can transform them to only basic. Right. So this kind of understanding we develop from exploratory data analysis, just by looking into data, what kind of data we have. Then you need to manipulate that data, right? Otherwise, unnecessarily it will increase the categories, though they belong to same category, right? So how you take this decision? This decision comes from your domain understanding. That's where again and again I tell every time, domain understanding is very important. Okay. Now let's move further. And this is data.tel. It will give you the bottom 5 rows, and then data.info. Yesterday also we have seen, it will give you the information about your variables. So like there are some categorical types like string type, object, and there are other like int and float. Okay, and then if you do data.describe, then it will give you like the descriptive measures, like what is the, how many total rows are there, how many, what is the mean value, what is the standard deviation. Okay, what is the minimum value in that column, what is the 25 percentile. So yesterday we have also seen, okay, this 25 percentile, 50 percentile, 75 percentiles are used for outlier identification. Okay, if the data is lying beyond the IQR. So what is IQR? So see, this is a Q1 and this is Q3, right? So Q3 minus Q1, so you simply do 47 minus 32. Okay, you get the that IQR, and then IQR, so that in up, what will be the upper range of outlier? Q3 plus 1.5 times IQR. Okay, so any point lying beyond that range, it will declare as an outlier, and bottom side Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR. Okay, so that's where these numbers are helpful. So this describe function will give you those descriptive measures basically. Okay, then let's see, like is na dot sum, it will give you the na value. So in this data set we don't have any na values, but yesterday's there were some na's value, right? Then we removed also. Okay, now let's talk about like data job dot value count. Okay, so now we will look into some specific column which we think, as a domain expert, we think, okay, this will be the more impactful variable or feature, okay, with respect to what we want to identify, whether he will opt for a term deposit or not. Okay, so job is one very impactful. Okay, if which kind of job he is having, so that's where we want to know the count. Okay, so there are 10,000 admin people, admin kind of job. There are 9,000 blue collar job, then 6,000 technician, like this. Okay, same way, like if you want to understand the marital, okay, how many married, single, divorced, and unknown category, right? What is the education level? So here you see university degree, high school, basic, professional course, okay, like this, unknown, illiterate. Okay, so that's where you identified, okay, maybe we can convert then basic dot 4y, basic dot 6y, basic dot non-y, all to basic. So that's where here we use NumPy library np dot where. So see, NumPy is used for all kind of numeric transformation, mathematical operation. Okay, so any kind of transformation you want to do in data, like then you can do with the help of this. So like np.where you can do with the respect of pandas also. Okay, so like np.where data education is equal to, so here this data frame coming from pandas. Okay, so you read pd.read CSV, that's how you got the data, right? So data education where is it is equal to basic.9y, you convert them to basic and then assign back to this one. Okay, so that's where all basic.9y, basic.6y, basic.4y will be converted to basic and assigned back here. Okay, and it will return. This is what we did. And then if you do data education.value count again, then we don't have basic.6y, 4y, 9y. We'll have only basic, right? Because we have transformed. Now it's your choice also. If you want to convert university.degree to only university degree, or high school to only high school, professional courses to only professional courses, you are to remove dot. You can do same way. Okay. And now let's talk about our target variable, that is y. Who will subscribe for term deposit and who will not? So see, 36,000 and 4,000. So this is imbalanced problem. There are 36% who don't subscribe for the term deposit, and there are only 4,000% who subscribe. And now with this, if you build the model, then it will be biased towards this, right? Because even if like you don't build the model, so this is around 85% of the data, right? Or even more. So if you do random guessing also, then also you can say, okay, random guess also will give you 85% probability, 85% accuracy, right? So that's where you need to balance this class. So both should be near to equal. Okay, like 50% or 45%, 55%. Okay, near to equal. So that we'll see in a moment, like how to do the balancing part. Okay. Next is like in EDA, we do the visualization. We just understand the distribution of data. So here you see like the target variable, how it is distributed. So around 36,000 rows are there in 0 and around 4,000 belongs to one category. Okay. Then we can plot the like what is the frequency of the like job type, like how many admin caller jobs are there. And then in admin, how many are like 0, like who has not subscribed, and how many have subscribed. So what it gives, the more subscription of term deposit comes from admin category, right? This one you see here, correct or not? So more subscription happened based on admin. So people who are doing admin job, they are more potential customer for the bank, right? At least this data is telling to you that thing, right? And second important, like technician. So if I just show you this data, you cannot get me this insight. But if you plot this same thing like this, then you can easily tell, okay, first one is like admin are the most potential customer, then technician, then blue collar, right? So that's where visualization helps you to get the insight, and with that you generate different useful reports, which helps management to take any further decision. So bank people focus more on admin rather than other management or retired or any other people, right? Another is like based on marital status. So we can use matplotlib library to plot this, and here we'll see, okay, how many divorced are there, and in divorced categories, who go for subscription and who don't go for subscription. So very rarely people go for subscription, whatever the reason you can think of. Okay, in married category, so at least in married category, they go for term deposit subscription saving scheme because they want to secure their future. There could be multiple reason, right? It depends on how you interpret the data. Okay, same thing I can interpret differently, same thing you interpret differently, right? So there could be a various reason. Okay, but ultimately it should solve one particular problem. It should be aligned to that direction. That's important, right? Then we can plot based on like days of week, which day of week more subscription has happened. So they all are similar, like, okay, of course in maybe Thursday and Monday people do more calling, and then here you see there is no data for Saturday, Sunday. Saturday, Sunday even banks also seems to be closed, and in Saturday of course they are open but half day. Okay, they don't do much calling, so that's where Saturday, Sunday data is not there, and then Monday and Thursday more people get called. So that's what, right? You can interpret, but mostly are similar, not much difference basically, right? Then next thing what you can give to get, like which month more subscription happens, like May subscription happen, then second is like July, then November, right? So these are more fruitful month for the banking people, right? So then again, what else you can draw, right? So guys, I'm not going in much into coding side, because in half an hour I cannot explain all about coding, right? I will share this notebook and you can go through. If you have doubts, then of course you can ask me, okay? But this notebook will help you, okay, to plot them. At least it will give you getting started, right? That's the whole idea of this webinar. I cannot teach everything in 1.5 hours, right? So you just go through this notebook, and if you have any doubt, then tell me. But I'm giving you, right, how to do visualization, how to interpret the result, what is the importance of that result, okay? That is useful, right? So then this till here it was EDA, and then next we do data pre-processing, okay? So like we'll again get to know, okay, what is the info. So this I have again run the same thing, and then like we'll just separate out based on this info. We'll get to know, okay, how many are categorical variable. These objects are nothing but the categorical variable, okay? So where we have certain categories, like under job we have limited category, admin job, blue collar job, housemaid, management, technician, okay, limited categories. Marital also there are 3 categories: married, unmarried, divorced, right? Education level also there are 3 to 4 categories. So we have separated categorical variable because our machine learning don't understand a string, they only understand 0 or 1, right? So that's where we need to do something with respect to categorical variable. What something I will talk about, okay? So we have categorical variable. So now for wherein I'm applying simple for loop, and then I'm just converting to dummies, okay, to categorical variable. So what is dummies basically? So let me quickly talk about this. What is dummies? Okay, so I will quickly introduce you the dummy because that is important. Okay, so suppose in marital column, okay, so we have like married, okay, unmarried, okay, divorced, and unknown. These 4 categories are there, right? But machine learning will not understand them. So somehow, if you can convert them to 0 or 1, so what you can do? So these are the rows, okay? These are the 4 rows, for example, okay? And then what you can do? So marital underscore married, okay? You can get one column like this: marital underscore unmarried, okay? Marital underscore divorced, right? One column. Marital underscore unknown, right? Another column, correct? So here married. So here you see this row represent married, right? So you write 1, remaining all will be 0, correct? Here it is like unmarried, so here it will become 0, it will become 1, 0, 0, okay? Here it is divorced, so it is married, it is unmarried, 0, it is divorced, make it 1, 0, okay? Then unknown, 0, 0, 0, 1. Now suppose 5th row is like divorced, okay? Then what number will be in this row? 0, 0, 1, 0. 6th row, for example, is like for unmarried, okay? Then what you will do? 0, 1, 0, 0. So like this you converted your whole data. You generated 4 new column instead of this 1 column and converted them into 0 and 1, right? So this is what dummy will do, okay? Same thing. So using Python, what we can do, like we can do for all categorical type of variable, we can convert them to dummy, and then it will of course generate some new column, okay? Like for job category also, job is also like categorical, right? So job underscore blue collar, job underscore entrepreneur, job underscore housemaid, job underscore unmanagement, like this, okay? For married also, like what we talked about, somewhere it will be married, right? Like this, marital underscore divorce, marital underscore married, marital underscore divorce, right? So single, marital underscore unknown, these 4 columns, right? So likewise it will create some new column, right? And then again, if you can just look for the data set, you can just do the head, okay? And I'm interested only column from job to job unknown, okay, location. So before this comma, all will be row. So I'm not writing anything in the rows, it will return all row. And then we are interested in starting from job till job unknown, and then head, it will return first 5 rows, okay? That's how we can interpret this, okay? So now see, here we have a job. So for job we have converted into dummy columns, right? So now we don't need this original job column, we don't need this original marital column, we don't need this original education column, we'll remove them, okay? So that's what we are removing. So we'll include all the columns which are not in categorical column. So this categorical, so these columns, right? So these we will ignore and from these, correct? So that's where we columns to keep are these many only. Okay, see, job column is not there, but job, service, all those columns are there, right? So this is what we do. So this like pre-processing we did with respect to feature engineering features, and then next thing is like we will look for the oversampling. That is the like here you see like there is an imbalance problem, right? We need to balance the class. So we'll apply some sport technique. So you can install IMB learns. It gives you the, so what is sport? Synthetic minority oversampling technique. So like for like minority class, so like our one is minority class, like where we have only 4,000 rows. Okay, so for that it will generate synthetic samples. Okay, artificial samples. So using, you can import this one, and you can separate the predictors and target here, right? And then you split the data, so in train and test, and then you create the smart object, and then what you can do further. So this was just checking the version, so this you can neglect. Okay, and then here, yeah, oversampling dot fit resample, and you pass the X train and Y train data. Okay, then it will give you the oversample. It will just oversample, and it will just give you the increased data set. So now you see in X also we have 51,000, that is the predictors, and in Y also we have 51,000. Okay, and then you just see the class class 0. Okay, class 0, this Y represent the target area, right? In that we have class 0, it has 25,000, and class 1 also has 25,000. Before that, class 0 was having 36,000, and class 1 was having 4,000. Now both are having same number, right? So this is what we did, oversampling. Okay, and next so see, we have many columns, around 40 columns, and now all are not helpful. So we'll apply some recursive feature elimination technique. Okay, so from sklearn dot feature selection, you can import RFE, and then you can apply this RFE technique. So how it works basically, it selects some random columns, and it build the model, and it check the accuracy, and then it performs many iteration, and then it see the like in which feature selection, in which group of feature model is giving you the higher accuracy. Okay, so that's how it returns you the set of columns. So then it has given us like these many columns. Okay, so how I got from this? Okay, I just manually return. Okay, so this column it has returned you, and now same column with respect to these column only you need to build the model, not with respect to the all columns. Okay, so now what you can do again, now from here it will start logistic regression model building basically. Okay, so now you need to import logistic regression model, and you need to import the metrics, because you need to see the how model is performing. And then again, so we have done a train test split before just for oversampling. Okay, now we have again combined the result. Okay, so X and Y, so again we'll do the split, and we'll have X train and Y, X train X test, Y train Y test, and then we'll do the logistic regression model building, object of logistic regression, then we'll fit it. Okay, yes. So Sonu is asking, is there any other option for? So there are many other options for sampling. So like so see, in sampling we have probability based sampling and non-probability based sampling. Okay, so in probability based sampling also there are many methods, non-probability based sampling also there are many methods. Okay, and then we have like up sampling, okay, and lower sampling, okay, down sampling. So where in down sampling we reduce the up the class which have more number of rows, and in up sampling we increase the minority class. Okay, so in down sampling we reduce the majority class. So there are different techniques you can Google. Okay, or you can discuss with me later. Okay, but we have just used one smart one. Okay, okay. So now going further, like we'll just use the logistic regression for model building. So I created the logistic regression object, and then we'll fit on X train because we are training. So fit will train the model on training data. Okay, X training we have predictors of training data, and Y we have target of training data. Okay, and then if we predict, so logreg dot predict, so prediction we will be doing on the testing data, right? So we'll pass the X test, and then we'll see how much accuracy we are getting. So for getting the score, so logreg dot score, you pass the X test and Y test. Okay, and then you will get the 87%. So our model is giving you 87% accuracy. Okay, so 87% time it is predicting correctly. Remaining 30%, 13% it may be wrong. Okay, and then further you want to identify what is the recall, precision, true positive rate, okay, then you can use confusion matrix. So sklearn.matrix import confusion matrix. It will then you can do confusion matrix. You pass the y test and y predictor. So y test the actual value and y predicted the predicted value, right? So that's where you can compare, right? So how many are actual true positive, how many are false positive, right? So that's where it has given you the confusion matrix. So this is true positive, correctly identified as positive. This is a false negative. It was positive, but it has given predicted as negative. False positive, it was negative, but model is predicting as positive, true negative. Okay. So basically, total correctly predicted are 7020 plus 6341. 341. So these are total correctly predicted. 6341 basically. Okay, so these are correctly predicted, and on which like the errors are these are the wrongly predicted. Okay, so this will be 87%. Okay, and that's where if you want to get the score, of course you can also get the score true positive 1, true positive plus false negative, that will be the recall. Okay, but your model directly gives you. Okay, so here with respect to class 0, your recall rate is 92%. Okay, so out of total 0 class, 92% is correctly identifying. Okay, in precision, sorry, in class 1, out of total class 1, 83% it is correctly identifying. Similarly precision. Okay, how much precise your results are. Okay, and then next thing is like I also talk about, right, ROC and AUC curve, right? So then you can use sklearn.matrix ROC AUC curve. Okay, and then you can plot this. Okay, so here you see, so false positive and true positive. Okay, and then see here, so up to here, like your false positive rate is not increasing, but after that false positive started increasing, you can set threshold somewhere like 0.7. But your logistic regression model in sklearn, okay, they already do this thing in backend. Okay, so you don't need to set it manually. But if you want to write your custom function, everything using programming, okay, if you know programming, you no need to use all those inbuilt method. You can write your own programming, you can write your own function, right? You can do all those things manually also. Now your model is built. If you want to save it, you can use pickle, and you can give some name, okay, and logrec, you can save it. Okay, the moment you save it, so if you go here, so your logrec model, it is saved here. Okay, and then if you go here, then you can directly, so see what are the, so suppose you want to build a app for this, right? So what you can do, you can, so this is mostly for the one who is a little bit familiar on Flask or Python side. If you're not familiar, you can ignore this part. Okay, so in next session maybe I can cover the end-to-end Flask part. Okay, so that's a separate, but whoever is a little bit familiar, they can just think, okay, we have declared a function, and here we can just load the model, whatever we have so saved using pickle.load. Okay, and we can give the file name. Okay, and then same model dot predict, so same function we can use, and it will return the result. So like here we did model dot predict, right? Here we are doing, right, predict probabilities, correct? So like, so any function you can use logarithm.score to get the score. You can use this function to predict the probability if you are interested to know the probability. Any function you can use. Okay, so guys, this is all about the logistic regression and model building. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any question, then feel free to ask. Okay, so I'm here to take your question, so feel free to ask your question. Okay, if no question, then I'm just sharing you the feedback link. So please share your feedback. How was the session? Okay, and so just I'm sharing you the link. Okay, guys, so this is the feedback link. So please share your feedback here. Okay.